Hello there everybody, Sean Sheehan here before UFC 226 with just a quick breakdown and size up. We kind of did it on the podcast and we gave a good detailed breakdown, but a few people were asking if to put up something on YouTube a little bit like this. So I said I'd do it, I'd pop on and do it. If you want more stuff like this, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. We put up podcasts and videos and stuff like this all the time, so that's a great place to do it. But here I'm just going to talk about the two big fights this weekend, and if you have any comments on it, leave in the comments below or tweet me at Sean Sheehan BA. You can tweet at SevereMMA Pod as well on Twitter, and we can have a bit of a discussion about it. But when you have two champions like this, obviously the light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier fighting the heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic, it's big. This is a huge fight. Before you get to the the breakdown of the fight, before you look you look inside the cage, outside of the cage, this is big for the UFC. Now it mightn't be big pay-per-view buys or from an outside of the MMA bubble standpoint, but it's big for us. This is a huge fight, and I think inside the octagon it's huge too. Like this is a gargantuan battle for me of two insanely good, dominating fighters. At maybe not for Daniel Cormier, maybe not at the best, in his prime, but he's still a really good fighter. He's still a really good fighter. For Stipe Miocic, I think it probably is his prime, and if I think that's one thing as well that's kind of missing in the discussion coming up to this fight. Could it be a little bit of a step too far for Daniel Cormier? Could it be a little bit too late to be making this step back up the heavyweight? He's had those couple of wars with John Jones. He had that war with Alexander Gustafsson. He got knocked out by John Jones, what was it, a year or so ago. But to me, this is a fight that the smallest, most minuscule of thing could change it. And it could be, it's big things can change as well, obviously. But like, if Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic, if one of those guys can go out and they can steal the front foot, take the front foot from the very off and push the other guy back, that's huge. That's a big thing. If that happens from the start of fights, that person who can do that, and if they can do it from the start and keep doing it, that's huge. They'll win the fight, obviously. But if they do it and can't keep doing it, it's another issue. But I think this fight will be dependent on, let's say Cormier takes the front foot first, wins the first half round, then Stipe takes an even round, goes into the next couple of rounds, and then there's a bit of a clinch, someone breaks and there's like a little elbow or something like that, or someone could get cut, or a big takedown, or someone slips or something like that. For me, big fights like this, we don't talk about those kind of eventualities enough, maybe, or is there any point talking about them even, because we don't know what they are when that sort of thing. But I think a big fight like this and an important fight like this could be decided by something small like that, and something small becomes something big in a big fight like this. But look, for me, I mentioned the front foot, I mentioned getting forward motion. I think that's huge in this fight. Like, look at Daniel Cormier, all his fights, even against John Jones in the fight, and in both fights he lost, obviously, he was doing a good job of pushing John Jones back. He was doing a good job of getting into his space, and that's an impossible thing to do basically against John Jones, because he's so long and uses his reach so well. But Daniel Cormier was able to get inside. Now, Jones beat him on the inside because Jones is a phenomenal fighter, one of the greatest we've ever seen, obviously. But Cormier still did it, and if he can do that against someone else, he has an unbelievable chance of winning, because they're not going to be as good as John Jones. I don't think Stipe is as good as John Jones. So if he can do that, he can beat Stipe there. Now, I think Stipe is still a great fighter. And let's look at it from the positive point from Daniel Cormier first. If he can push him in there, if he can get a clinch, if he can make this a fight in the pocket, and when I say in the pocket, I mean inside the pocket, like make it an in-fight. And in the pocket, I suppose, is the wrong phrase, but make it an in-fight. If he can make it an in-fight, I think Daniel Cormier wins this fight every day. I really do. I think his clinch is better. I think his takedowns are better. I think his wrestling is obviously better. Now, Stipe has very good clinch, very good takedowns, very good wrestling, but I don't think they're on the level of Daniel Cormier, to be honest. And I don't think he's as good an in-fighter as well as Daniel Cormier. If Stipe can keep it on the outside, looking at the positive point for him, I think he will win that fight if it stays on the outside. If he gets Daniel Cormier backing up at all, or gets Daniel Cormier on the end of his jab, if he can keep him from infighting, keep him from the clinch, keep him from takedowns, I think that's Stipe Miocic's fight, to be honest. I think Graham mentioned on the podcast is really good straight shots. I think his hooks over the top are very good. I think I saw a few people saying about his leg kicks are not great. I think his leg kicks are actually are pretty good, and he uses them when he needs to use them. But the other side of it then, Daniel Cormier's leg kicks can be very good. And Daniel Cormier, as I think I mentioned on the podcast, he was commentating on the Junior Dos Santos fight with Stipe Miocic, and he talked about about Junior's leg kicks that he landed on Stipe, and I'm sure Daniel Cormier would be planning to do the same. He did it in the Jones fight. I think he did it in the Gustafsson fight as well. I'm nearly sure he'll be throwing in those leg kicks. Look out for that. That's a big thing, I think, early as well. Daniel Cormier is going to be throwing those leg kicks, because when JDS threw him, they had an effect. Now JDS has better leg kicks, I think, than Daniel Cormier has, but still, I think that's a factor coming in here. So look, that front foot, this fight is one of those fights. I think it'll probably go long, but I think early doors it's going to be very interesting, because when it's a fight for the front foot like this fight is, easy for me to say, I think it means a lot to see if you can get the front foot area. Like you hear Conor McGregor talking about it, for loads of his fights. Let's see who'll take the backward step first. And if someone takes the backward step in this fight, and lots of fights, I think that's huge. And I think it'll give the person who gets a front foot heart. If someone can get a big takedown or something like that, I think this could go. It could go very well for one of the guys. Whether it's Daniel Cormier, whether it's Stipe. Let's see about that. For me, I think Cormier will win it. I think his infighting is too good. I think his ability to close the distance is too good, and I think that'll see him through. But Stipe has that power. Daniel Cormier has been rocked. He's been knocked out by John Jones. He's taken a lot of damage over the last few years, even though he's been mostly successful. But he has taken, he's taken a good bit of damage. And if this goes 3-4 rounds and Stipe is landing those big shots, it could be a tough night for Daniel Cormier as well. But I'm going for Cormier. I think that that infighting and that wrestling will be a little bit. Maybe not the wrestling side, but the clinch will be a little bit too much for Stipe. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me know your picks, comments below, or tweet me. Really looking forward to all the other fights on the card as well. And thanks to everyone for watching and listening here. SevereMMA.com. Go over there, check out Fight Week coverage. Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast, and listen to the SevereMMA podcast, episode 169. It's free for everyone on every Podcast Republic, Stitcher, and all that jazz. So you know where to go. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you next time. Good luck.